Darius joins the solo carry list for jungle this patch, as he's incredibly powerful right now with his OP build, but still quite underrated. So we'll have the full breakdown on the pick along with 3 champions for every single role that have some of the greatest carry power for 25.5. And are you sick of losing games from bad teammates? Well, at SkillCapped, we turn your frustrating losses into satisfying wins. Take our wildly popular exclusive courses that teach you the secrets to winning as a top laner, jungler, mid laner, AD carry, and support. Then pair that with our other courses on how to counter OP top and mid laners, master your jungle clears, or check out our bronze to diamond series. We even have courses on macro, wave control, trading, settings and hotkeys, CSing, vision, mechanics, low elo mistakes, and the list goes on. Then head on over to our Smurf commentaries. Simply select the champion you want to master and get guides from challenger experts teaching how to play your champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. Our service really does work. That's why we offer a rank up guarantee. If you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below right now to get the rank you've always dreamed of. One of the most reliable solo carry champs for season 2025 that anybody can play remains a great pick once again for 25.5, being Urgot. Miraculously, swiftness boots avoid another patch without getting nerfed, so until that happens, we can expect for Urgot to continue dominating the meta. What makes Urgot so powerful for the average player is that he has incredible consistent DPS, but is still quite durable at the same time. You go Black Cleaver into Sterix for the core build on Urgot, and with all the health on top of the shield from Sterix, you're very powerful in extended fights. Urgot has incredibly strong early laning power as well, and he's a really great answer to some of the more annoying top lane champs like Riven, Jace, Cassante, and Jax, winning over 55% of the time in those matchups. In fact, the only matchup in meta that Urgot has a negative win rate against right now is Kayle, and with Kayle being in a pretty powerful spot in general, she's a good ban to consider. For your rune page on Urgot, you can never go wrong with Press the Attack. However, Phase Rush is a legitimate alternative option that actually does have a higher win rate than PTA. Phase Rush can be good into ranged matchups or into comps that have higher mobility, as the added sticking power can be extremely useful. Joining the top lane solo carry list for a second patch in a row is going to be Kayle. Much like Urgot, Kayle has been loving the fact that swiftness boots continue to be left unnerfed, as she's been thriving with them this season. Kayle in general is actually a lot easier to succeed with than in the past as well, because her meta builds don't involve very much attack speed. You go for the Nashor's Rush, which is a staple, but that's the only attack speed item you build, as Rabadon second and either Shadow Flame or Lichbane third work the best. Now, despite Kayle being more well known for her incredible scaling power, early game of Kayle is definitely not as bad as some make it out to be. Press the Attack is what's working best right now, and just a quick trade where you're able to proc PTA and then back away can allow you to whittle down your opponent in lane. Kayle's E is an auto attack reset, so it allows you to proc Press the Attack very fast. In regards to Kayle's matchups in meta right now, she likes playing into champs who lack super high mobility, as someone like Aurelia, who can easily get right on top of her, is a good ban to consider. Early on in lane, Kayle wants to take that quick trade and then use her W movement speed to help back away, but it's much more difficult to execute that game plan into champs with gap closers. The upper echelon of top lane has not changed a whole lot recently, as even after his nerfs last patch, Warwick remains a powerful solo carry. The nerf to Warwick's Q mana cost only nudged him down a very slight amount, as he's still one of the best skirmishing top laners that you can play. Warwick just feasts on so many champs in meta right now, winning a ton into Aatrox, Ambessa, and Mordekaiser. Few champs have the ability to match Warwick's extended fight power, as he just becomes so strong the lower he drops in health due to his passive. The one matchup worth a ban who Warwick players tend to struggle with is Teemo. Teemo Blind does a really nice job at countering Warwick's trading pattern, and as long as Teemo holds it until you look to go in, you have a very difficult time winning trades. You get a really big power spike with Warwick on his Blade of the Ruined King completion, as the sustain and consistent DPS power just makes his side lane threat extremely deadly. Blade into Stride is the standard 2-item core for Warwick, and then third item depends on the game. Spirit Visage is amazing into heavy magic damage comps, while Sterix works best into AD. For Warwick's rune page, you should be taking Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Last Stand, followed by Second Wind and Revitalize for secondaries. So making a splash on the solo carry list for the first time ever, and one of the strongest junglers in meta right now is Darius. Yes, you heard that right, it's Darius Jungle. That is a legitimately powerful carry for 25.5. So we actually have to go way back to patch 11.8 to when Darius Jungle first became somewhat viable, as his passive damage to monsters was increased from 175 to 300%. Since then, he's always been an okay jungler, but never saw any significant spike in play until recently. This is because of the super OP build that Darius Jungle can run, which completely alleviates his major weakness. We all know that Darius struggles to stick onto his targets if he does not have Ghost or Flash available, so this is the build you run to combat that. For the rush item, you take Ghost Blade, and then you also pick up Boots of Swiftness. You literally get 441 base movement speed from having these two items, which is just ridiculous. ridiculous. With the Ghostblade active pop though, this number jumps from 441 up to 500. You can even take Ghost and we end up maxing out at over 600 movement speed. Interestingly enough though, Ghost actually has a lower win rate than Flash on Darius jungle right now. Reason being is likely just due to the fact that 500 movement speed from Ghostblade and Swiftness boots alone is already incredibly high, so running Ghost on top of that just provides diminishing returns. After going for Ghostblade on Darius, the rest of the build is kinda up in the air as to what is truly optimal right now. Some players are going Deadman second, some are running Trinity Force, and even Sundered Sky is being played too. Deadman's is high value into heavy AD comps. If enemies are more magic damage heavy, but you still want some more survivability, then Sundered Sky makes sense, while Trinity is just the more offensive, all-out pickup. For the third item though, Sterix will generally be the best option. And then for the rune page, you can grab either Phase Rush or Conqueror. Phase Rush will work best into comps where you'll have a more difficult time sticking to them, so a Graves, Kindred, or Lilia matchup. Into lesser mobile comps though, you can get away with running Conqueror. Matchup-wise for Darius jungle, Wukong is one champ who he's been struggling against across all elo brackets, so it's a good ban to consider. Wu in general, even up in the top lane, has always been a good counter to Darius due to the fact it's very easy for Wukong to avoid the sweet spot damage of Darius Q, and Wukong's armor stacking passive is also a factor. One of the better junglers throughout this season who's seen a nice spike back up in relative strength due to many meta junglers being nerfed recently is Nocturne. Now that Diana, Viego, and Skarner are no longer top tier, it's allowed for Noct to move back into a top 3 spot. Nocturne works really well for solo queue because he has very well-defined power spikes that you can play around. Level 6 is huge for Nocturne, as access to his R should open things up for a free kill whenever you use the spell. Beyond level 6, your 2-item core of Stridebreaker into Hexplate offers up so much 1v1 kill threat. Hexplate is just perfect for Noct because he gains attack speed and movement speed after using R, while the active slow from Stridebreaker gives you even more sticking power, so that when you are an enemy, there's very little chance of them escaping. When picking Noct, it's a good idea to use your ban on a support with strong peel power, so either Lulu or Karma are good options in meta right now. The standard rune setup for Nocturne consists of Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, followed by Grizzly Mementos and Ultimate Hunter for secondaries. And back in the top 3 for jungle for another patch is going to be Master Yi. Master Yi is one of those junglers to where if you get the ball rolling early on, you just steamroll through the enemy team. A Master Yi who gets ahead is so difficult to shut down, as his consistent skirmish strength is hard for any jungler to match. You go Blade of the Rune King into Rage Blade for your 2-item core on Yi, and then also grab Lethal Tempo for the Keystone Rune, so the ramping power that the build provides just makes Yi a menace if fights drag out. One thing that a lot of Yi players are doing wrong right now when it comes down to his rune setup is that they are taking Grizzly Mementos and Treasure Hunter in secondary runes when Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter are infinitely better. Grizzly is such a bait rune on Yi because the lower trinket cooldown doesn't have as much of an impact in solo queue than a pure damage boost does. In terms of what junglers you want to try and avoid when picking Yi, both Amumu and Rammus can be more difficult to play into. Both champs have hard CC lockdown, which is the only thing that actually stops Yi from running through an entire team, so banning out either of them is a good idea. Joining the mid lane top 3 for the first time this season, and now actually a better mid laner than a jungler, is Diana. So the buffs from 25.4 were especially nice for Diana mid because she didn't end up losing any power at all like Diana jungle did. 10 base damage was added to Q and 6 damage to W. When you also factor in that Electrocute just got 20 damage added in 25.3, full combo of Diana in the early game now has 36 more damage, which is actually quite significant. Diana fares really well in solo queue against a lot of the popular mid laners like Mel, Zed, Katarina, and Yone. There's just one specific matchup that Diana is losing a lot to right now, and it's Galio, so he's a good ban choice. Galio's durability makes it really hard to snowball off of him early on, and then the point-and-click taunt from W hard counters Diana's dive threat later on, so it's all around a matchup that you really want to avoid. Really interesting to note right now is that even though Storm Surge is the most popular rush item on Diana, Lichbane heavily outperforms. Lichbane rush wins about 53.5% of the time, opposed to Storm Surge at 51.5%, so definitely look to try out the Lichbane rush. Second item is Shadow Flame, and then it's either Zanya's or Rabadon's third. For the rune page, it's a very lane dominant setup, as you're going Electrocute for the Keystone, and then dipping into Resolve for secondaries, taking Shield Bash and Bone Plating. With how the mid lane meta has been trending as of late, and a bunch of mages falling down in power, back to being one of the more consistently reliable mids is Ahri. The thing about Ahri is that her laning phase is very hard to punish, as it's quite easy to go even or get ahead with Ahri early on. Most champs have a few really bad matchups, but with Ahri, there aren't too many that you have to worry about. Yasuo can be a bit annoying due to his wind wall, as well as Syndra with her long range catch and burst power, so either of them are solid ban choices. The spike Ahri gets at level 6 is one of the best for any mid laner because of the mobility from her R allows her to punish enemies mispositioning extremely well. The catch power of Ahri is absolutely godlike, and it allows you to take matters into your own hands in the mid game to give your team numbers advantages heading into key objective timers. Just playing around the fog of war and looking for picks with Ahri is so impactful for solo queue. For Ahri's build, you have two core items being Malignance and Horizon Focus, and the main reason this build works so well is due to all the haste you get, which puts Ahri R on a very short cooldown. It's going to be Electrocute as the Keystone Rune with Taste of Blood, Grizzly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Mana Flow and Transcendence for secondaries. Back in the top 3 for mid for 25.5, and one of the best solo queue champs right now is Vex. Vex has always been a very solid champ to play into many melee mids, but with Electrocute getting buffed recently, it just makes her ability to shut down those champs even more insane. Vex wins over 56% of the time against Sylas, LeBlanc, and Yone, so even if you just have Vex as a pocket pick that you can pull out in specific matchups, she's such a valuable champ to be able to play for solo queue. It's just longer ranged mages that will give you some issues with Vex, so banning out Hui or Syndra is a good idea. Vex's kit is just really good for solo queue in general though, because the catch power from R and the reset mechanic on that allows her to clean up fights really well. Having that agency to where if you're ahead, you know that even if the enemy ADC is super strong, as long as you find an opening on them in a fight, then you can completely nullify all of their strength. The optimal core build to run on Vex consists of a Luden's Rush into Shadowflame second and Zanya's or Rabadon's third. Look to run Electrocute for the Keystone Rune with Taste of Blood, Grizzly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter, followed by Mana Flow and Transcendence for secondaries. With all the recent ADC changes that we have seen over the past few patches, one champ who's been really gaining in relative power is Tristana. Tristana joins the top 3 for this patch as arguably the most underrated ADC for 25.5. Reason being is that Trist can run the exact same core build that is making Jinx incredibly powerful right now, as the Wild Arrows into Infinity Edge core works amazing on Tristana as well. Both Infinity Edge and Wild Arrows were buffed recently, so ADCs that can abuse this core build have gained in strength. Yuntal as a rush is now winning over 1% more than the Collector on Tristana, whereas before the item got buffed, it was actually reversed, with the Collector winning 1% more. So the 3-item core that you will want to play for this patch revolves around Yuntal into Infinity Edge second and Flicker Blades third. Since Tristana is an ADC who wants to be playing aggro and looking for all-in plays, banning out a meta enchanter support who shuts that down like Karma or Lulu is a good idea. The best rune page for Tristana consists of Lethal Tempo with Triumph, Alacrity, and Cutdown, followed by Free Boots and Biscuits for secondaries. So the undisputed best ADC for solo queue, who we are very surprised avoids nerfs for 25.5, is Jinx. Jinx just comes online so hard at that 2-item spike of Yuntal into Infinity Edge right now, so being consistent with your farm and hitting those items as fast as possible will set you up to hard carry games on the champ. Jinx is some of the best teamfight presence for any ADC because all she needs is that one kill to get her first passive proc, and she becomes unlocked to unleash on the enemy team. Jinx is really the definition of a solo carry champ, because her kit just allows her to take over fights all by herself. Only main downside to Jinx is that she does lack a gap closer, so heavy dive champs can shut her down in teamfights. Right now in meta, we have both Diana and Nocturne being played at pretty high rates, so using your ban on either of them is good value. The optimal rune page on Jinx has her taking Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cutdown, followed by Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for secondaries. And for the final solo carry ADC of 25.5, back for another patch, is going to be Vayne. The meta is really nice for Vayne right now because a few of the most played ADCs include Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and Jhin, and Vayne has a much easier time playing into them than many other picks. Early game ADCs like Draven, Samira, Lucian, and Kalista are not being played very much at all right now, so the Vayne pick is just really good in a lot of spots. The only matchups in meta that you do want to try and avoid are Caitlyn and Ashe. Kate ban would be slightly higher priority for us right now just due to Ashe getting nerfed for this patch and Kate having the higher play rate. For the build on Vayne, you honestly have a ton of different options right now, as Blade, Kraken, and Wild Arrows are all viable rush items. Into comps that are more tanky, you should be running the on-hit build. However, into comps that are extremely squishy, you can go for a Wild Arrows into Infinity Edge core for greater burst power. For the rune page on Vayne, it's Lethal Tempo with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, followed by Conditioning and Overgrowth for secondaries. A support who's been on the rise lately and joining the solo carry list for 25.5 is Braum. Braum is a very powerful support for solo queue right now because he is one of the best skirmishes for any champion in the game. Braum passive stun has such immense value when you are fighting around objectives, and with feats of strength and Otacon added to the game for this season, there's just more fighting in general, which is great for Braum. In a straight up 2v2 or 3v3 where everyone is on full health, the team with the Braum is going to win out more often than not because being able to stun all enemies and block a ton of damage with his E is just so powerful. Braum also fares incredibly well into Nautilus and Thresh, who have seen play rate spikes recently due to their buffs, while he's less powerful into Enchanters, but Lulu was just nerfed, so everything has been trending in Braum's favor. Senna in specific is one matchup that can be more annoying to play into as Braum, so she's a good ban to consider. Even if you just have Braum as a counter pick to pull out against melee supports like Naut, Leona, Pyke, and Blitz, you'll get amazing value out of him as Braum's currently winning over 53% of the time against against all 4 of those champs. Braum's really not terrible into enchanters either though, as he still does have above a 50% win rate into Lulu, Karma, and Nami, who are the most played enchanters in meta. The standard build for Braum has you running Solstice Slay for the item upgrade, while Locket and Knight's Vow are core pickups. The best rune setup for Braum consists of Guardian with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching, followed by Biscuits and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. With Unflinching getting buffed for this patch, it's actually going to bring even more power to Braum, so don't sleep on the heart of the Freljord. An enchanter who has been climbing in priority recently, who's one of the best for solo queue right now, is Karma. We like Karma as that solo carry enchanter a little more than the likes of Lulu right now, because after Lulu got nerfed, she's not super OP anymore, and you do have more agency over how lanes play out with Karma. The poke from Karma hits a lot harder in lane, and you can use this to generate early game advantages for you and your ADC. What's really nice about Karma as well is that you can either play a more selfish damage-oriented build or a more supportive build depending on how the game is going. If you have a lot of tanks on your team and are lacking damage, then Malignant's Rush can work really nice. Vice versa though, if your team has plenty of damage and your ADC is ahead early on, you can rush Moonstone and just look to buff them up better. Matchup-wise for Karma, she fares pretty well into most champs, but one matchup who she's had a more negative win rate against lately is Pyke. This makes sense because Karma's only weakness is getting picked off and bursted out quickly, and Pyke has that ability, so he's a good ban to consider. For Karma's optimal rune page, you should be taking Airy with Axiom Arcanist, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm, followed by Font of Life and Revitalize for secondaries. And then for the final solo carry champ of the patch, rivaling Karma as that #1 enchanter right now, is Nami. If you just want to pick up a strong enchanter right now, then Karma is going to be a bit easier to succeed with right away, but if you can pilot Nami well, she definitely has a higher ceiling than Karma. For this reason, we like Karma better if you are gold or below, but if you're plat or above, then Nami can work a lot better. With Nami, you are a little more reliant on your ADC in order to succeed, because where Nami gains a lot of her value is in her ability to buff up her ADC's damage by a mass amount. You have the bonus damage from Nami E, along with the increased damage from your rush item being Imperial Mandate, so the all-in power that you and your ADC have on that mandate completion is really high. The crazy thing about Nami right now is that she literally only has 2 matchups where she has a win rate lower than 50%. These include Braum and Elise, and Braum is definitely a manageable matchup, so it's mainly just him being really good in meta that is the reason for the lower win rate. Elise is a good ban to consider for sure, because her catch and burst power is something that Nami wants to avoid playing into. For Nami's rune page, you should be taking Airy with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, followed by Bone Plating and Revitalize for secondaries. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for this one, as those are 3 of the best champions for solo queue for every single role in 25.5. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you back soon.